So hopefully you can see the screen.
Yes, yes.
Good. So yesterday what we have covered, let me just quickly go through. So yesterday we talked about ICE, use cases, and today's we are going to talk about ICE architecture. So just give me a minute. Let me just bring the slide. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about ICE use cases, and we discussed that ICE is a single device which can perform ACS function, NAC profiler function, guest server function, NAC manager, and NAC server function. And you have seen the use cases that ICE can be useful where users want to have asset visibility, where users want to enforce the compliance, where users want to have secure access, where users want to have asset enforcement, where users want to have device administration, where users want to control your guest and corporate Wi-Fi access, where users want to allow BYOD device to access your network resources securely, or where users want to have some segmentation, or where users want to enforce um, threat intelligence. So ICE would be useful for that scenario. Further, today we are going to discuss ICE architecture. So basically, we are going to understand some terminology over here about ICE architecture. So let me just bring that slide as well. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about ICE architecture. Okay. So when I talk about ICE architecture, that means what all the things you are going to see within the ICE, Cisco ICE, right? We are going to discuss about those steps. So as I told you earlier, that Cisco ICE can act as a AAA server, which stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. It can provide the authentication to user. It can provide authorization to the user. So authentication means user has to prove his identity, and based on identity, you can provide the certain level of access that is known as a authorization. And then final we have accounting. That means whatever the user is accessing, all the logs would be generated. Okay. And if you want to trace back that what user accessed, you can trace back using a log that is known as accounting. So it can work as a AAA server, and its architecture is going to include all these stuff. So ICE is providing services. In the ICE, there are services, and these services is provided by a particular personas. So we will discuss about the personas. On the demo, we talk about what was the personas. So basically, ICE is providing different type of services, okay, using its service features or service architecture. So there are some type of services. For example, you just want to have network access. User ICE is doing profiling. ICE is doing posture checkups. ICE is checking the security group access, right? Monitoring and troubleshooting. So all these services are within the ICE. I would talk about some of the services. Let's take example of profiling. So what is the profiling? What this profiling service is doing? These profiling services is going to gather the information about the asset, and this information can be used for the asset visibility, right? So profiling is doing the information gathering done by profiling, profiling services. Okay, so you can say that inside ICE we have a services and we have a various type of services. For network access, we have a services for profiling. We have profiling services for posture checks. We have a services. So profiling is doing information gathering, and information gathering can be useful in asset visibility. So asset visibility means what type of asset is connecting to your network. You can check using this profiling is doing all that services to identify that what type of asset is connecting to your network. We have another services which is posture services. So what posture services checks? Posture is basically going to use posture services is for what? It is for the compliance check. So using posture, you can do the compliance check. Not only you can check the compliance, but also you can check the health, or you can also do the remediation. So you can also run the remediation services. So what is the meaning of compliance? You know that you are going to check whether the device which is connecting to network is compliant. In the compliance might be you are putting the condition that antivirus services should be running, antivirus should be updated, right? So based on that, you are checking the compliance, you are checking the health. But let's say what if antivirus is not updated or antivirus services is not running? So under remediation, the ISE is capable to make the changes. It can run those services. Okay, it can offer to run those services, right? So that we can do using the posture checking. We have security group, which is called SGT, security group tag, and this is used for the segmentation. So when you just want to define a segmentation of your network, you can use SGT. So as an example, for account user, you just want to provide different access, and for IT user, you just want to provide different access. So you can use SGT. And all these are the part of service umbrella, right? And we have a other thing as well. For example, we have a network access. These network access, there we are using radius and we are using TACAS. Okay. So if I talk about major difference in between radius and TACAS, so basically from ICE perspective, so basically this is the AAA services. Radius is providing AAA, and this is providing AAA for data plane. Data plane. And TACAS, this is providing AAA of management plane. So if somebody want to access network, on network level authentication, we have radius. On device level authentication, we have TACAS. So as an example, I'm telling there are simple example. Let's say I have a user, this is Bob, and via AP, you want to connect via AP. Here we have access point. You can take, this is laptop. So here we have AP, access point, and he want to connect via AP so that he can access the network resources. He can access the internet. He can access internet via post connecting this. Here we have a firewall. So can you guess out of this TACAS or radius, which protocol being used for this kind of authentication?
Tag access.
No, radius is
So he's
going to be used.
accessing the firewall, yeah? So firewall
No,
would.
he is not accessing the firewall. Basically, he just want to access network so that he can access the internet.
Okay, so then the radius.
That data plane, it's accessing data plane only,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So radius would be used, but similar, we have a Bob user who just want to manage this AP. Basically, he just want admin login on this AP instead of accessing SSID. He just want admin login on this AC, this AP, or admin login on admin access on this switch, admin access on this firewall. At that moment, what it is going to be used? TACAS or radius?
TACAX.
TACAS, correct. So in nutshell, you can understand that radius is used to access data plane. For data plane authentication, you are going to provide a radius mechanism. And for, your management plane authentication, you are going to provide, or management plane access, you are going to provide authentication mechanism as a TACAS. So this service, basically ISE service architecture, ISE services is providing what? They are providing a specific feature by using the personas, right? And those specific features are network access profiling, posture security, group access monitoring, and troubleshooting, etc. So this is the one term that you have understood, services. Now I would move to next term, which is called node. So what is the meaning of node? An individual physical or virtual Cisco ISE appliance is known as a node. So when you are purchasing a Cisco device, which is Cisco ISE, let's say this is a Cisco ISE you have purchased, and let's say you have purchased a model number as an example, SNS 3500. So this Cisco ISE model you have purchased, SNS 3500, and you are deploying this in your network. So what it would be called? It would be called ISE node. In simple term, you would say this is ISE node, and you would say this is a physical ISE node. So you would say ISE physical node. So ISE you can purchase as a physical. We have a different model like SNS SNS 3500, SNS 3600. There are different models over here available from the Cisco side. But the device, the Cisco ISE device itself is known as a node. Okay, so this is called
Whether
node.
whether it's physical or logical.
It could be virtual as well.
So
So
both of them are called node, yeah?
sorry, what are?
Both of them are called node, if it's
Yeah, both are
virtual
them
or
called node.
physical.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it is physical or it's a virtual. Physical or virtual appliance, both are called node. Now I would move to next terminology or next architecture, which is node type. So this is um, this is showing the deployment model. So when I say deployment model, that means how you are going to deploy Cisco ISE over the network. That is called node type. So what type of that node? You won't say that whether that is a physical or virtual. Okay. Node type means how you are deploying in your network. So basically there are two type of deployment you can do in your network. One is known as a inline. Okay. And I think I haven't, okay. Cisco node. I haven't written over here. One is known as a inline and other is known as a offline or promiscuous. I would tell you what are the difference in between. I haven't written that in the slide. So there are two types of node deployment. One is inline and the other is called offline or promiscuous. CUOUS. OUS. Okay. So offline or promiscuous deployment or inline deployment you can do. Okay. So I would tell you what is the difference in between node type. So node type is what? How you are deploying a node, how you are deploying a Cisco ISE in your network. That would be defining the node type. So I would let you know that how you can connect. So one is offline. So I'm let me go there and talk about offline. Let's clear this. And let's go to next slide and talk about offline. So let's talk about offline. As I told, there are two type of deployment. Node type, let me write over here. Node type. And this is known as a deployment. This depends on the deployment. So as I told, number one is known as a offline or promiscuous. And number two, this is number one. And number two type of deployment is inline. So might be you already know that if I talk about promiscuous, what is kind of promiscuous deployment? Have you heard this particular term before? Promiscuous?
And private VLAN, I heard this.
Okay, in private VLAN you have heard that. Okay. So I'm going to create two diagrams and you would let me know. You need to just discuss that which would be inline and which would be promiscuous. So number one diagram I'm going to create this side. Let's say I have a user who just want to connect to the network and he just want to connect via a switch. He just want to connect with this switch so that he can access network resources. So this is the switch through which user just want to connect. And here somewhere we have a network resources. So this is network resources which this user want to access. And what we have done here, we have deployed Cisco ISE. This is a Cisco ISE that we have deployed over here. This is one type of diagram. Another type of diagram is we have a same network resources who just want to connect via switch. And want to access network resources. And we have a Cisco ISE here. We have connected Cisco ISE here. This is Cisco ISE. Now you have a figure one. I mean, out of them, let's say this is, I'm going to say this is number one figure, this is number two figure. Can you guess which one is the promiscuous or offline and which one is inline?
The one that's connected to directly with the I mean the eyes, that's inline one, and the one that's like sending the copy, like a mirror, sending the copy of the packets to the eyes. The second one, that's the promiscuous one. This is how I have this concept on firewall. I think I have done it once. This.
That's correct. So promiscuous means, or offline means what? We are going to keep the decision on the device itself while somebody is connecting with himself, I mean, to the device. He has the capability to take the decision, and based on its a decision, he can allow or he cannot allow. So this one device, this switch, on this switch has a full, I would say full freedom to take the decision that whenever this user is connecting, whether this user need to be sent to the Cisco ISE for authentication or not, or whether this user need to bypass the authentication check. So this device would have a full freedom to do all these stuff. However, this device has a freedom, but it is not going to take the decision by its own. It is going to check the policy in the ISE. If you have configured that, go to Cisco ISE. However, there is not full enforcement of the things over here. If this device want to bypass Cisco ISE, it can bypass. But on inline mode, you would have a two ISE interfaces. One is connecting towards switches, another is connecting towards the resources. That means this user, when he just want to access network resources, it has to take, I mean, it's compulsion or mandatory that it has to take the permission from the ISE, then ISE is going to allow him to access the network resources. Now, which one is a better? Inline or offline?
Depend upon the design of the the design matters.
Yeah, it design matter. So I would let you know that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The offline, it's the best one, right?
I didn't get you. What is it?
No. You asked, right? Which design should be the best, right?
Yeah, which design is
So
good?
offline will be best.
Yeah, it depends on the requirement.
Different.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just explain if you complication of both of these stuff. First, I'm going to tell you the complication of Cisco, this inline one. What if Cisco ISE gets fail? It's inline. And anyhow, your Cisco ISE gets failed. User is authenticated. Okay. Authentication completed. User is accessing the network resources via Cisco ISE. But sometimes Cisco ISE gets failed because it has deployed on inline mode. What would happen? Whether user would be able to access network resources or not. No, they won't be able
No,
to access, right?
yeah,
So
because
this is yeah, one
this
of the
is the border.
complication. Yeah. In this case, you have a network resources. I mean, even though Cisco ISE gets failed, once if user is authenticated, he can access the network resources. Right. Now, the another thing, another scenario, if this is a Cisco device, the switch is from Cisco. So, in between Cisco and Cisco devices, there is a high compatibility, or they are highly compatible to each other. Whatever ICE is saying, this switch need to be followed because they are from same vendor, they know the dependency and they are highly compatible with which is compatible with each other. But what if this is not a Cisco device? It's not a Cisco device. This device, if this device is not a Cisco device, whatever the change of authority command this Cisco ISE is issuing, if this is not a Cisco device, it's a, let's say, Juniper or some other vendor where this switch is not know whatever the change of authority command it is issuing from here. On that case, what would happen? So this ICE do not have a control. All the control would go to the switch only because switch is not following the instruction which ICE is providing because it's not compatible. On that case, you could deploy the ICE device in the inline. Why? Because if this is not Cisco device, if anything is getting failed, okay, what would happen? At least at the end, Cisco ICE has a authority to take the decision whether it should allow or not allow to this. So as I told you that it depends on the scenario that where you just what type of deployment you want, whether you just want offline deployment, offline node type you want, or you just want inline node type. So it depends on the scenario.
Sir, in the inline, yes, the IS is used as a gateway. So all the traffic goes through the IS, yes, sir?
Yes, right. So if you deploy as a layer 3, it can do the routing. And if you deploy as a layer 2, it is just, just passing the traffic based on the decision. Like you deploy
Just
firewall.
a bridge,
Just a
bridging.
bridge. Yeah, it's just a bridging. However, without authentication, as it is AAA server, so without following AAA process, it won't be allowing the user to connect network resources to access network resources. I haven't made here network resources. Okay, so I hope you got what is node type. And let's go to next terminology, our next architecture point. And let's discuss
Sir, I
over
have
here.
one question. Can we put the Cisco ISE on a cloud?
Yeah, you can put Cisco ISE on the cloud as well.
Okay.
Sir, if you put it on the cloud, that will be inline or offline, sir?
That would be promiscuous basically. And that, if you put Cisco ISE on cloud, there would be a limited things you can do. Okay, because if you are putting the Cisco ISE on cloud, so some of the functionality you are going to lose. I
Such
would
as?
let you know, such as I would say, you can say COA, change of authority functionality you are going to lose, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Now let's talk about persona. And I think on demo class we discussed about that. So what is the persona basically? So the persona is these services provided by a node, because basically you are going to put all these services there. You are going to deploy personas in the node only. A Cisco ISE node can be assumed any or all of the following personas. So in Cisco ISE, we have different personas. We have administration policy, that is one of the persona. We have PX grid and monitoring. These two are different personas. Okay. And what we have? Policy administration node, which is PAN. Monitoring node, which is MNT. Policy service node, which is PSN. And we have PXG, which is called Platform Exchange Grid. So on the demo itself, I told that there are three personas mainly. But in ISE, if I talk about overall, so we have four personas in ISE. Number one is PAN, number two is monitoring, number three is PSN, and number four is in PXG. Where these personas you can find? You can find these personas in the node. When you are deploying the Cisco ISE in your network environment, these persona you would find within the node. Okay. What is the use of these personas? So if I talk about PAN, policy administration node. So this is a single place of class for Cisco ISE administration and configuration operation. So all type of admin stuffs which you are doing via PAN, policy administration node. As an example, you are accessing the Cisco ISE, right? How you are doing? You are doing using PAN. You are accessing any policy. How you are doing? You are doing using PAN. On the policy modification, whatever you are doing using PAN. So Cisco ISE administration done by this PAN node, which is known as a policy administration node. When the policy is deployed, so it is going to deployed by the PSN. So if I talk about policy service node, so it is going to run different type of services that handle profiling, policies, decision, or different type of authentication services. So I can say that this PSN is what? This is providing radius services, TACAS services, profiling, etc. All these services is provided by this.
Sir, excuse me, these are the features, yeah, inside the node.
Inside the node, we can see these are the feature, or you can say these are the different type of role.
Role.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here role is a different term basically. So you can say that PAN is a kind of policy administration node using which you are managing the policy of the ISE. Monitoring is, this is MNT is monitoring node using which you are accessing the log of ISE, or ISE is generating all the logs using monitoring node. And all the services is provided by the PSN node, like radius services, TACAS services, profiling services, or policy decision.
So they all comes under one iOS of the ISE node, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I would let you know that that is going to determine by the role basically. So you can, these personas can be found in the single node itself, or you can distribute these personas among the different node. So it's deployment, it depend on ISE deployment, that how you are doing ISE deployment in your network. Based on that, you can run these personas in a different node itself. So let's say you have a standalone one device, you have just single device in your network, which you just want to use as a ISE. So what you would do, this single device would be carrying out all the personas. Okay. The single device would carry out all the personas. So what personas does basically, it is going to determine the services provided by a node. What the services this node, ISE node is going to provide, it depends on the personas. That what the personas has been installed on the particular ISE. You got my point? For example, you have a two ISE node. One ISE is ISE 1 and another ISE is ISE 2. You have two ISE node. On this ISE node, you have installed PSN. You have enabled PSN services, monitoring services, PX grid. You have enabled these three personas, but you haven't enabled administration. So though these services are running over here, but you cannot manage these services because for administration, what you required? You required a PAN. So what you have done, let's say you have installed the PAN over here as well. So now you can access the ISE. You can create the policy. Based on the policy, if user is authenticating, it is going to create the log. You can see the log as well. Okay. PX grid, I would tell you in some time that what is the use of PX grid. So that means this ISE is going to provide full-fledged services. Single ISE would be able to provide full-fledged services. Now let's say number of user you have a lot. For example, let's say you have a earlier when you started your company, you have 100 user only who was authenticating through the ISE. Okay. Now user and the devices all together, you have more than thousands of them who is authenticating through the ISE. So now you have what you have done on ISE 2, you just made it live. And on ISE 2, now you are running PSN services. You have running PSN services only. So you are saying that if user is coming, it should be authenticated via ISE 1. And if the devices are coming, it should be authenticated via ISE 2. So what you have done on the ISE 2, if you want to do the monitoring, what you have to do? You have to do the monitoring from the PAN, this one, ISE 1 only. But authentication itself it can do for the devices because here PSN is running. So what I mean to say, the persona is going to determine that particular ISE node is going to provide what services, whether it is providing authentication services, whether it is providing monitoring services, whether it is providing administration services, or whether it is providing third-party device integration. Okay, if I talk about PXG, PXG is known as a platform exchange grid. So I hope you know the basic work of PAN, MNT, and PSN, but I would tell you about PXG. So let's say I have a scenario like that. What I just want a real-time threat intelligence from other Cisco platform. So have you heard about this services, Cisco Telos? Or maybe you know that Cisco umbrella. This is kind of secure DNS access services.
Yes, sir.
But
And
in the Cisco umbrella, you have the option as well, a dynamic DNS update or some kind of services we have. So what I mean, let's say I would simply tell you about Cisco umbrella, what Cisco umbrella does basically. This is a DNS protection services. So like in your organization, user is accessing any website. If that website is malicious, before it is passing through the proxy itself, Cisco umbrella is going to stop there. It's not going to resolve any kind of malicious website IP. Right? So in their database, they have the dynamic updatation of all those malicious domain. And what I just want, my ISE would also be able to, my ISE would also be able to get the intelligent feeds from here, from the Cisco umbrella or Cisco Telos, or you can say Firepower, Advanced Threat Protection. Somewhere I just want to integrate a third party services with my Cisco ISE for the security updates, real-time security updates I just want to have. For real-time security updates, I just want to integrate my Cisco ISE with third-party devices or third-party services. Okay. So how I would integrate? To have this kind of integration, we have to enable PX grid personas. Without this, I won't be able to integrate my Cisco ISE with the third-party devices or third-party services. Okay, for the security feeds. You got my point? So this
Yes,
PX
sir.
grid is used for the control and facilitate PX grid publishing and subscription of third-party topics.
Do we need any dedicated license for PAN monitoring PSN?
Yeah, license is really required
Okay.
because based on the license itself, you would be able to determine that what the licenses you have and how many maximum PAN node you can connect, how many user can be authenticated. It's depend on the license. However, it also depend on the operating system version itself. On the ICE, if you are running on 2.6, there are some certain limitation. And if you are going to run 3.x version, there are some certain, limitation. But yeah,
Okay, that is
license.
user level limitation will be there. So my question is, if I'm buying one license, that license will contain combination of all four PAN, MNT, PSN?
No.
Okay.
I mean, like in Cisco, we have premium licenses, we have standard licenses. So based on that, it is going to provide, different services. But if you go for base license itself, on the base license, you are going to get all four personas role, but limitation for each personas would be limited. So now I'm going to give you scenario if you understand this slide. So probably I would
Sir,
ask a
there's
question
one
to you.
question. One
Yeah.
question I have. Is there any rule for the failover of the eyes? For example, if one eyes, suppose in a deployment we have, there are two eyes. So how could we? I mean, if one gets crashed, so I mean, if we have inline mode there, so we want the other one to act upon the first one. So is there any role or any? I mean,
You can deploy in HA. You can
an
deploy in
H.
HA. Yeah, we are going to talk that thing in next part on the role part.
Okay.
But before that, I just want to ask, you might heard about Microsoft AD, MS Active Directory.
Yeah.
This is what? This is the third-party services. This is not provided by Cisco, right? So now you have a three roles. I mean, four personas. PAN you have. That is one personas. You have MNT personas. And you have a PSN personas. And you have a PFG personas. These four personas you have. Now you need to tell me that if you have a Cisco ISE and it want to talk to Microsoft Active Directory, on Cisco ISE, all these services is running, right? Which of personas is going to act here so that your Cisco ISE can communicate to Microsoft Active Directory?
I think the PSN one.
Okay.
Four neither, right? All three.
These all the four personas you have. Okay. Again, understand my question. Let's say Microsoft is providing Active Directory services, and here we just want to have LDAP communication in between Cisco ISE and Microsoft Active Directory. Okay. So which of personas is going to work over here? PAN, MNT, PSN, or PX Grid?
PXC.
Okay.
PSN,
Why PSN?
because that rule is
Because it managed the device.
Communicating with third party.
It managed the TACAS and radius, sir.
Okay.
Now, as mentioned, PXC personas is for communicating with third party services.
Okay. So let me just clarify. I would tell you which one is the best. I mean, which one is going to work. So for security feeds, as I told you, for security feeds with third party, this PX grid is going to act for security feeds only. Right? But if you are going for authentication services, so authentication services is provided by PSN. So basically here for the LDAP with MS AD, we are going for authentication services. At that time, PSN is going to work. So that means your PSN node, this node would be helpful here for the communication with the Active Directory. Okay, not PX grid. PX grid would only do if you are integrating your third-party services. So let's say you just want to integrate your ISE with the firepower advanced threat policy, ATP. Policy. And you have the user who is accessing the internet via your network. Okay, here you have a switch. This is the user who has already authenticated using ISE and he is accessing the internet. But let's say on the internet, he is accessing any malicious content. And how this ISE is going to determine that this is malicious content? Is taking the feeds from the firepower that this is malicious. And if firepower is telling this is malicious, ISE is going to send the COA, change of authority, to block this port or to block this user. So on that case, you have to use PX grid over here, right? For security feeds only with third party. But for any kind of, authentication services, you would use PSN. Any question? Okay, so I hope you got my point. And now I would, now I move to next slide. I mean here for the role. This is the last point for today's class. So let's talk about role. What is the role? Role is going to determine if a node is standalone or it is a primary or it is a secondary and applies only administration or monitoring node. So basically for administration and monitoring node, what you can do, you can define whether this would be standalone, whether this would be secondary. All these steps you can do. So what is the role basically? So on ISE, as I told you earlier, if you have a different nodes, let's say you can deploy ISE in HA. So you have here you have ISE, Cisco ISE. You have a, PSN. You have PAN. You have MNT. And you have a PX grid, which is running on this particular ISE. What if this ISE gets failed? Whether all those roles can be transferred over here? Yes, this can be secondary. So you can deploy in ISE in a HA. So how it depends? It's depend on role. Sometimes you are doing a distributed deployment. So distributed deployment means you are not installing all these stuff in one device, but you are installing all these stuff in a different devices. So let's say on this ISE 1, you have deployed PAN, you have deployed PSN, MNT, all these stuffs you have deployed, or PX grid. But when you taking here ISE 2, on this ISE 2, you have deployed what? PSN, PSN itself. You have taken ISE 3. So here also you have deployed PSN. Why? Because this is the node which is very busy. PSN is very busy. All the authentication is done by this PSN only. So that's why you are taking multiple ISE over here to deploy this PSN node. So in a group, how many PSN you can deploy? In one group, maximum 50 PSN you can deploy. More than that, you cannot deploy. So when you are deploying all the role in a single node, that is known as a standalone deployment. And when you are deploying these role in a different ISE device, this is known as a distributed deployment. Okay. So in role architecture, basically what it is going to determine, it will determine if node is a standalone primary secondary node, and applied, this primary secondary is only applied on the administration and monitoring node. So basically role is going to define that whether that is a standalone deployment or whether that is a distributed deployment. So if you have inline mode and you just want HA, so definitely you would go for the distributed deployment. And if you have, you know, promiscuous mode, on that case, you can go as a standalone deployment. Or there itself, you can go for the distributed deployment, because if you don't want to depend on single device, then definitely you can go with the primary secondary way.
Sir, with distributed one, can I load balance traffic like 50%
Yeah,
on one eye
yeah,
and
yeah.
50%
You can
on
do
the
that. You can do that. Even not 50%, based on, you know, different attribute, you can load balance the traffic. As I told, if there is a network device who just want to authenticate, for that you can use different eyes. And if you have a user who just want to authenticate, for them you can use different eyes. And that's what organization does basically.
Okay.
Okay, so let me stop here and see you next week. And probably
So,
next week.
sir, the class will be 1 hour during Ramadan?
We are going have decided in this way, like let's go for 2 hour, but we can take 10-minute, 5-minute break in between. So that you guys, if you want to do pray, you can do at that time.
Yeah, we will be doing the prayers, but at least, I mean, 1 hour is extremely less throughout the week. So if it is at least, I mean, 1.5 hours so that we could cover a little bit, a lot. So it's we have only 2 days in a week, yeah. So almost it was 2 hour, but if two
Let's
hours
do
is
it
not.
in this way. In this way, let's do in this way. We can start sharp at 7, right? And we can decide that we can go up to 9, but whenever you guys want me to stop, I could stop at that time. So if you want me to stop, you know, at 8:30 or 8:45, I can do that. That's not an
Javed,
issue.
Javed is there. I think let
It's okay.
us.
I said it's okay, but we will take about 10-minute break from 7 to 9 o'clock.
In between, right? No, not
Yeah.
an issue. You can take the break. That's fine.
Yeah, so because we need to complete this as well. So throughout the week, 2 classes, and if it's less
Yeah.
than 2 hours, then it's difficult to complete this on time. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the beginning, we are covering the theory, the things, and that's why it is taking time. When we go for practical, that would be really very fast.
Well, me and Javed, we have had good experience on networks. So I I think I don't know about the other friend, but
Ram
you
is
know,
also having good experience on the network side. So
so that's good. So if he had a good experience, then it will not be an issue. I
yeah,
mean,
it not be an issue. That's fine.
yeah, then we will be able. I mean, currently we are doing our CCIE, so on network side, we are almost good.
Yeah.
Just we have already touched a lot of security equipments as well, but so far we are away on update devices. I have touched Cisco ASA, IDS, IPS,
Okay.
but
Good. Good.
I'm away from those since 4 or 5 years. That's why So I want to
Okay.
just renew all those skills back.
Yeah,
Just
not an issue.
that's
That's
it.
fine. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So yeah,
Have a-
see you next week then. Bye.
Take care. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye.